It's like decluttering the weight of these unnecessary stories that we tell
Yeah.
about ourselves. Yeah, that's the biggest thing to get rid of. That's
Yeah.
so good. And that's a benefit that will last beyond, the kitchen's going to get
Yeah.
messy, right? We're going to cook food. We're going to make laundry, right? But if we can change the way that we feel about ourselves, if we can change those stories,
Yeah.
that's
You're
phenomenal.
listening to the Decluttering Club podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Mueller, and it's my mission to equip women to declutter their homes, their time, and their lives so that they can cherish what truly matters.
Right. And yes, it did take a few years, but then I realized, I remember one weekend I was home alone and I was not going to have company, and I wanted my home company ready for me.
For you.
And
Mm-hmm.
that felt so good. I felt like the queen of my castle, walking around this lovely, clean home.
Yeah.
You know, it was as if, and food had been already pre-planned and was sitting in the fridge, super easy peasy, ready for me to cook, not a lot of work, and something that I liked. And I had no idea that was going to be one of the benefits when I first started my journey. And then it was more about me,
Yeah.
not about other people. It's how I want it.
That is so good. That is so good. This is lovely. I love how we just dove in. Let's back up a little bit, and I want you all to introduce yourself. So tell us your name, where you're from, and give us like the quick rundown on who you work with as a decluttering coach, because this is episode 55 with our seasoned, or some of our seasoned decluttering coaches, and we're diving into like the nitty-gritty here. So Linda, why don't you start us off?
Hi, my name's Linda B, and I am a decluttering coach with a specialty in time management. I live in Seattle, Washington with my husband and my Havanese puppy. And my business is so therapeutic for me because I love helping people. So I have in my business one-on-one client sessions that I offer. I also have a group where I put lots of information in for people to be able to learn from and have conversations. I'm on YouTube. I have a page, and all of them you can get to me basically if you just write Linda's Clutter Talk. And I just love working with people. I just love hearing someone say, "Oh my gosh, that worked," or "That's so wonderful. I never thought of that." So that's my joy. That's because this is supposed to be retirement and I'm not working. So instead, I'm pursuing my passion.
That beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Joanne, why don't you go ahead?
Everyone, my name's Joanne Reeder. I am from Ontario, Canada, and I started my decluttering journey in 2002, coming from a place of shame. I used to joke that, oh, I had chaos, can't have anyone over syndrome, and I laughed, but no, there was a lot more shame behind that. So it was February 2002 I continued on my decluttering journey. Of course, this is way before Facebook, so it was with an MSN group. I became a professional home organizer in 2015. And then in 2021, I became a team member with Sarah Mueller's Decluttering School. And I'm also a network coach, and I do have my own coaching business. And I love working with clients. We can really create and transform a space from something that was like a hot mess, maybe you couldn't even open the door, into a very functioning, efficient, and beautiful space. And I do that one-on-one with people, or I do, weekend or 2-week workshops with a small group of clients.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was you who coined the term, at least in my world, in my knowledge, that stash and dash room. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes. I was the queen of stashing, dashing personally. Geez, I had a huge kitchen, lots of cabinets, and anytime people would come over, I didn't know where to put anything. I would just shove them all in the kitchen cabinet. So they were packed full. throw papers into the
Mhm.
bathroom cabinet sinks and the laundry room cabinets. And yes, I do have on my website a free PDF. It's the top 7 tips on how to conquer your stash and dash room from a professional organizer. Yeah, so, and stash and dash rooms, we might have a stash and dash drawer or just a closet, but I
Mhm.
used to have the whole house. So,
It is definitely a thing. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, Joanne. All right, Julie, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Julie. I'm also from Ontario, Canada. I also was the queen of Stash and Dash. My story is a little bit different because I found Sarah and I joined a challenge and I decided that I was going to do this secret and I was not going to tell anyone because I was so ashamed of my space. And I really realized that during this journey, we are not our stuff. We are people that have stuff. And so what I do as a coach is I incorporate the idea of self-care, which I call care tasks, and the belief that we matter and we're enough into our decluttering journey. So I'm the one that you will always hear me incorporating these little bits of self-care into our day, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we are not honoring the commitments that we make to ourselves, like we do with everyone else, we become depleted and we become overwhelmed. And then we don't want to do anything. And then our cup is empty. And when we fill our cup, when we do these things, we can pour into others, we can work on our spaces. And I just feel like our whole lives change. So I called my business Creating Space with Julie because I really want to help people create space in their homes and their hearts. And so when I'm working with people, I'm known as the one that creates pretty spaces. Like everyone looks at my background and they're like, oh, it's so pretty. But I also know that it didn't start like that. I didn't even know I was capable of this because I was stuck in a story that I was the messy one. I was a hot mess, that this was easier for everyone else. And I realized that 10 minutes a day, simple steps, and just starting. I think sometimes we wait. You guys have heard me say before that I used to wait for this magical unicorn to fly into my space and it was going to tell me, okay, it's time to get started. That doesn't happen. I mean, I wish it does. I'm looking at a unicorn right now, so maybe it does happen in my case, but whatever. But we can decide. And something, you didn't ask this, but I'm going to share this too. Something that I've realized as I was thinking about doing this podcast is my identity has completely changed. And now when I go to work on a space, I decide that I'm going to work on it. I don't think about, I have ADHD, so sometimes it's hard for me to start a task because I can't see the finish line. I don't think about that anymore. I think about, okay, Julie, you want a calmer space. Julie, you don't want to feel overwhelmed. Just start, trust the process and start. So it has been really this amazing process from me doing this in secret where no one knew that I had a clutter problem to now I talk about it every day. So I love it.
That's good. That's good. I love what you said about how like that was your story, right? You were like, oh, I'm the hot mess person. Like, and it's so easy to say that. But there is, and I think Joanne, you said that too. Like there's this pain underneath that. It's like we kind of make light of it sometimes. And, it's kind of fun to joke, oh my gosh, my house is a tornado hit my house, but it actually does not feel good. And so I love that you all of you and all of our coaches are working to help people with that, because we don't want you to feel like that if you don't want to feel like that. And there are some really straightforward solutions. So such important work. Oh, I love it. So good. Okay. We were already like joking around before we started recording, some really, really fun things coming out. I would love to hear from you all, and, feel free to jump in. What are some themes that you hear, from your clients when you're working with people, or, when you're in a Facebook group? What are people saying? Like, is there something that is, kind of that sticks out to you in particular? Linda, you're nodding.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I got my certification in time management. I would always hear, oh, I would, but I don't have enough time. And in some cases, maybe they didn't have a lot of time, but I challenge anyone who says they have no time to do anything, that's probably not true.
Oh, so What's the first thing you make people do if
Well,
they tell you they don't have time? I would love to, but
I kind of at first I asked them a couple of questions like, do you work full time? I want to get like a feeling of just how tight their time is. Believe it or not, the majority of my clients do not work full time, just a few of them. But I say, I want you to think of your regular bedtime, subtract the amount of hours that you're in bed out of your 24 hours. And then what I want you to do is start seeing if you have any automatic routines that you do. So in the morning, do you always get up and do X, Y, Z, then coffee, then empty the dishwasher, whatever? Or are you planning to make some routines for that? Because I highly suggest that. If you have a routine already, just put down the total time it usually takes. You don't have to do each little thing, just the total morning routine, hour, 15 minutes or whatever. And then do the same if you have an evening routine, and then put the total time for that. Now, for each day, look at what in between those two things, what obligations do you have to meet? Do you have a doctor's appointment? Subtract that. Do you have this, that, or the other? Subtract that. Subtract, all the things that you can think of. This is very abbreviated, but all the things you can think of, and then see what's your real time available, because we all misconstrue how time goes through our lives and how long things take. And I tell them, do a time on it. Start managing your time. Don't let it manage you. If you find out that you can empty your dishwasher in 4 minutes, I bet you've got 4 minutes a lot of times during the day. If you see that it only takes you 15 minutes to do a scrub and touch up in your bathroom, we always seem to estimate on things that we don't like to do and underestimate the amount of time of things we do like to do, which gets us in trouble. So if you say, oh, well,
that was a value mom right there. We're over. Why is that? Why do we overestimate the things we're dreading and we underestimate the things that we love? So
because our brain's trying to justify doing the things we love. Oh, it won't take that long. And it doesn't want to do the other things. So it says, oh, that'll take forever.
So it catastrophizes or magnifies that unpleasant thing. That's super interesting.
Yeah,
I hadn't noticed that flip side. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And so, data speaks. I mean, the truth is the truth. It's not how you're interpreting it. So let's say 3 times you time how long it took you to empty the dishwasher. It's not going to be exactly the same, but you can get a rough idea of how long it takes. So then if it's not in a routine, but you want to do it that time, you could say, oh, I have to go out twice today, but in between there, I have 20 minutes. And looking at my little list of how long things take, I can do 2 or 3 tasks and still have time to get out the door. So you're using that wasted time, that time that you're normally just getting ready to do something by waiting till time to go, to doing something that you really need to do. You'll have to stop me because I could talk about this for 3 hours straight.
It's good stuff though, right? It really is. It's good stuff. What else? What other themes?
I was thinking along the same lines of time. I see this a lot in my groups and with my one-on-one clients. And what surprised me is when I became a coach, I thought, okay, I'm going to help everyone declutter. I know the steps. I can walk them step by step. And what I didn't anticipate, which sounds silly when I'm saying it because I experienced this myself, but I didn't relate it to everyone else, is that we say that we don't have enough time, yet we make time for other things. And then we tell ourselves, oh, well, this person is more important, or doing this for this A, B, and C is more important. And then we go back to, so we say we have no time and we're overwhelmed, and then our mindset is cluttered. And so it became really clear to me as I started working with people, oh, I need to take a step back. We need to talk about what are you doing for yourself, which takes us back to self-care, which is why I really think in my practice, self-care is my secret to decluttering, because once I can get someone to actually buy in, and like I have these stories of people that have worked with me, and they will send me message after message and say, okay, Julie, before I sign up, before I press submit, I don't understand. Why are you saying self-care will work? What is even self-care? Why is this important? And I think that the same way that we've grown up not necessarily knowing how to declutter, not knowing how to organize, not knowing how to clean, we also didn't learn that doing things for ourselves is important. And we're not taking away, we're actually adding. And then when I have clients do this, and even myself, when I spend 10 minutes in the morning for myself, I actually gain more time. Now, Linda's right. I'm not actually putting more time into my day, but I'm not doing all of the things that I used to do to distract myself, or the excuses that I came up with. And then I'm like, oh, I have clarity. I did this thing for myself. I'm not going to resent my family. I'm not going to, I used to have this martyr phase where I was like, I'm doing everything and no one's doing anything. And I have to tell you that last week, one of the tasks I used to do that about was taking out the recycling. And last week I went skipping down my driveway and skipping back up the driveway, because I was so happy that I don't care about the actual task of the recycling anymore. It's more like I am investing time in myself to do something that used to bother me. And now I know it's going to make my life easier, and I just do it. And so when we incorporate looking at how much time we have, and then really believing that we can do things for ourselves, and then gain that clarity and gain that time, I don't hear that as much.
You're never going to have trouble taking that out again, because now your brain associates taking it out with something fun.
Yes.
You're skipping down. So it's not going to fight back. It's no longer going to think, oh, this is such a terrible task. It's going to go, oh, let's have some fun. Let's do it.
Yeah. It's the same thing if you're doing things with your family. Like I did the same thing. I timed how long it took for the dishwasher. So now, like on Sundays, we usually, all of us will watch, like we'll have a series or a show or a movie. And then I used to think, oh, well, it's okay. We don't need to do our kitchen zero or any of our things on Sunday night. We'll just have this time as a family, and then we'll just go to bed. But then when I woke up on Monday, I was regretting it. So then we made it a game. So now in between an episode, we might say, okay, I'm going to go empty the dishwasher. You're going to pack your backpack. You're going to make sure you have your clothes set up, whatever it is. And so we do the tasks that are going to make our life easier. And then we get to do the fun things. And it's no longer a chore. And we don't wake up with a case of the Mondays because we took care of it while we were doing fun things.
I think that's just so important, because I think kids have this too, right? They do the same thing. They're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take forever, right? Whatever it is, like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like, that's what my kids do. And I'm like, probably not, but either way, like, let's just get it done. Let's knock this out. I think that a friend of mine, she has this phrase that says, love is accountability, right? And, they probably aren't going to want to, but they're going to do it because you're guiding them and you're requiring it, and you're teaching them, hey, this is not that big a deal. This is important, and we're going to be grateful. We're going to be glad tomorrow morning when this is all done. We're going to have an easy morning. Now, whether or not they acknowledge that, right? They may or may not, but at least they'll have the skill, right?
Yes.
Which I think is something a lot of people never learned. And then they pay the price now, right? When they're grown up, when they're 40, 50, 60, they are like, oh, I can't get myself to do this. So I love that you're doing that with your kids now. So good. What other themes, Joanne, what are you seeing coming up with your clients?
One thing I hear from people is, I don't know where to start.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Right? And that's overwhelming. There wasn't any course in high school, or at least I would have skipped. I didn't know where to start too. But it's, they say, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And I say to clients, when they say, I don't know where to start, I have, 3 answers. First one, well, we could begin with the end in mind. So let's say there's a spare bedroom and maybe you want to turn it into a home office, or maybe your kids are moving back, so you need that, or a guest room. Okay, so we've got a goal, we're going to start removing items that should not be in the bedroom or whatever decor is. And then some people, they don't even know exactly, let's say, what it is, what they want from that room. So let's make it to just a clean slate. And I've done this many times where you can't even open the door. And this is when I've actually been on a job in a client's home, or even a client online. Is so if you can't open the door, you just start with the floor. That's it. Just 1 foot at a time until you can get the door open. And then you make a pathway so you can work. And maybe your first goal is, we're just going to make it to the other wall, right? A pathway there, because that happens in rooms. And it's a lot more common than you think. And another thing I would say to, people is, well, let's start with the low-hanging fruit. So you can see your progress immediately. And the low-hanging fruit, and when I do go into a client's home and there's a space, be it the kitchen or living room, first thing that we start doing, be it myself or my team, we pick up all the obvious garbage, recycling, and if you have kids, you probably have a bunch of dishes and stuff too hidden.
Seriously.
Right? So it's just a sweep. I'm going to look to my left, and I've got my garbage bag, my recycling bag, and we're just going to work our way around the room. And quite often, when I go into a client's home, and even with a team, we could spend the first hour just taking out the trash, recycling, and getting the dishes out of the way. Now we can start with the stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That makes a difference, right? Yeah. And going back to, like, we're not our stuff. Like, it's okay. It's okay if you need to spend an hour just like picking up that kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't mean anything about you. It's just things that you want to take out. So I think there's such a relief, when we share that with people, and when they can actually hear that, they kind of just relax, and then they can get to work, right? Yeah. When we're so busy, like judging ourselves, then it's really hard to get anything done. We're just, really consumed with that.
I do count picking up trash and recycling it and putting it away. That's decluttering in my books, right? Because it's clutter. It's unused stuff, right? It's
it all counts.
Yeah, one of I think the best things I learned from you when I started, Sarah, was I thought I had to work harder. I thought I had to exhaust myself to be able to clean things up. And when first time I ever heard you say, do 10 minutes at a time, I was like, what? Oh my gosh. A lot of small little sections of time, I get so much more done than if I did it all in one big, like 4-hour thing. And then I can't move for the next 2 days because my body hurts and I'm mentally exhausted. So, this may be a strange place to do it, but I want to thank you for that.
It's such good news, isn't it? And I love that like you are the time management expert, right? So you have absolutely like taken that to heart, right? And now you're teaching it to people. It's such good news. I think there's just so many misconceptions out there about how to declutter, right? People think it's got to be hard. They got to kill themselves. They got to just like exhaust themselves, like just there's all of these expectations out there, like myths, really. And they just prevent people from doing anything. So I love that you guys are just like shooting all of those down. It's really good. Okay, lightning round, because we're going long here. Do you all have like a favorite story or a favorite anecdote from a client, like that you can share with us? Because I want people to think about like what it would be like to work with Linda or Joanne or Julie. We want to like start that spark in their mind. So just share a little bit if you can think of something Like, what's one little thing that that you love? Like, maybe it's an aha moment that a client had with you.
I did have, well, go ahead, Joanne.
This really surprised me, and it was with before I started online declutter coaching. I was doing a kitchen for a lady. She was just going back to work. She'd been on mat leave. She had been on this big diet and, wanted to go back to work as a teacher. She had the toddler, she had the newborn, wanted to keep on with her diet. And she knew that going right back to work would be a struggle. So I organized her kitchen for her and her pantry, and she loved it. And I thought that was great. When she went back to work, she emailed me. She said, "Thank you so much." She said, "Because of what you did, I could keep my kitchen that way." She could stay on her diet. She lost weight. She felt great. It was easy to get out in the morning because all the baby gear, food, and formula had its own section. And just something for me. She really said having her kitchen organized helped her lose weight. I was like, "What, didn't see that ever as a
Ooh,
bonus
who knew?
benefit."
Oh, that's a fun one. That's
Yeah.
huge. I love that. Oh, so good. Linda, what about you?
Well, there's so many, but the most recent one I can think of is I was working with someone on managing their time during the day while they were still trying to declutter and do all the other things you have to do for maintenance. And she just kept telling me, "I just don't have any spare time." So I walked her through her day, and she worked full time. So it was tight. But I told her to go back. I wanted her to all those things that she says she does before she heads out the door to work. I want you to time audit them individually and tell me how long they take. And then, see individually, total them up, see what it comes to. So my next session with her, she was like, "Oh my goodness." She says, "I found 2 hours that I can use." She
Oh.
found 2 hours from the time she gets up in the morning and the time she goes to work that she could have been doing things. But because she wasn't paying attention to the time, kind of lingering around in between and this, that, and the other, it was getting sucked away. And I mean, she has been knocking it out of the park ever since. Those 2 hours were exactly what she needed to do the things that she needed to get done, because when she got home from work, she was so tired and this, that, and the other. And her energy time, and we all have to pay attention to when our energy is best, her energy time early in the morning, the better. So that was perfect that she could find 2 additional hours just by doing the math, just by looking at the actuals instead of the perceived use of her time.
I think this is why a coach is so important, because, you can read a book and it'll say, "Oh, do this or that," and you're like, "But this is not my life." Like we all have the stories that our brains are telling us. But when you work with a coach, you're like, "Well, just do this thing and come back and let's talk about it." And all of a sudden, right, it just shines the light on what's actually happening, right, in ways that you can't get. It's like they say, you can't see the label from inside the bottle. You can't read the label from inside the bottle. It's what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. We need someone else to either ask the right question or just make that observation. And then all of a sudden we find 2 hours every day. Like that must have been life-changing for her.
But I find a lot of women say that they've cut down the amount of time they allot for hair drying because as they aged, it got thinner. And I said, well, I can really understand that one because mine has too. It used to take like 20 minutes to get it dry. Now it takes 10. So,
time savings. There you go.
Yeah, things change. You may not be using the amount of time you think you are.
Right. And you won't know unless you take a look and actually measure it. Right. So good. Julie, do you have a story?
So I do. So mine is a little bit different. I have lots of decluttering wins and stories with people, but this one is, I made a decision last year that I wanted to try and help more people. And I thought, okay, how can I do this? And I was like, one-on-ones work really well. And I got this message from someone that I was working one-on-one for quite a few sessions. And she called me her decluttering bestie. And I was like, oh, that's right. Like, I'm kind of like this person that's there that helps keep you accountable. But what I learned is that it wasn't my job to make sure she got the work done. Like I was feeling guilty if we made a plan and then she came back and she didn't do it. I was like, oh, did I do something wrong? And then I realized that we all learn this on our own time. And so I thought, okay, how can I help more people? So I decided to open this group program, and I have 6 women in there, and they touch my heart so much because they range from the age of late 50s to 78.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them last week, I was like, what has changed since you worked with me, or what do you like about this group container? And every single one of them said that they had no idea how important self-care was to them at this stage in their life. And they were getting the decluttering wins. Actually, after this call, we're doing a decluttering call together. So they do that for sure. But they really understood the importance of, I need to take care of myself. And they're in different situations, like all of us. Like sometimes we find ourselves that we're caring for our husband are sick, or our children are sick, and we forget about ourselves. And it just, I was teary when I was reading their emails, because I thought this work matters. Like decluttering matters. And that doesn't necessarily mean that decluttering is, okay, I'm going to clean up this drawer. It is, but it could also mean all of the thoughts that we had that are not necessarily true. Like when I told myself that I was messy, I made little decisions throughout the day, but that doesn't mean that I am a person that's bad or I am messy. And so to see these women really believe in themselves and love themselves and understand that, yeah, I can take a couple minutes and I can do a meditation, or I can do a journal, and then I can also declutter, and their life is so much more enriched. But the best part of all of that, which I didn't think about when I was doing one-on-ones, is now they're this little community. So now they have these friendships, and they actually asked me, they said, you know, when you send us an email, we don't have everyone else's email. Like we all talked, like we want to know one another's emails. So now when I email them, it's all of them at once. And then they reply. And it's just, I don't know, they taught me that it's never too late to learn something. And it's never too late to work on our mindset and our self-care. And they all bring something to the table. So we do this thing, we call it roses and thorns. And so they talk about like what was like the best part of their week and where did they struggle. And it's just amazing the things they come up with. And then when we finish the call, we all feel lighter. And I was like, that is decluttering, and that is the magic of the community. So I think that is right now, that's the thing I'm most proud of and my best win so far.
It's like decluttering the weight of these unnecessary stories that we tell about ourselves. Yeah, that's the biggest thing to get rid of. That's so good. That's a benefit that will last beyond, you know, the kitchen's going to get messy, right? We're going to cook food. We're going to make laundry, right? But if we can change the way that we feel about ourselves, if we can change those stories, that is, that's phenomenal. This is amazing. Okay. Thank you so much, ladies. Everybody's listening. You should go check out these coaches. They're amazing. We're going to include links to their websites in the show notes for the podcast. Thank you all. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
See y'all later. That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed this podcast, would you leave us a review? It would really help us get the word out. To start your decluttering journey, go to thedeclutteringclub.com. That is declutteringclub.com. We'll see you next time.